Are you tired of Fallout New Vegas feeling a little too unimmersive? Imagine stepping into the Mojave and truly having it feel like you're there. Exploring the wasteland and interacting with all the characters, cutting off a Deathclaw's hand and of course retrieving the platinum chip. It was easy to get immersed in New Vegas back when it first came out. I remember seeing it for the first time and thinking it was the most realistic game ever released. With games like Cyberpunk 2077, Kingdom Come 2 and a plethora of other RPGs, player agency and interactivity has hit a level that quite frankly an RPG built in under 12 months that released over 10 years ago can't really hold a candle to. That's not a fault of the game though. At the time, New Vegas was one of the best RPGs on the market. Unfortunately, time moves on and so do games. So it's no wonder that New Vegas nowadays is harder to truly feel immersed in. But thanks to the efforts of some really talented modders, we can make New Vegas feel more interactive and immersive. In the vanilla game, the most you can interact with the game world is by talking to NPCs, picking up items or grabbing them. Of course, this is ignoring the reactivity that some of these actions can have on the world, which New Vegas is admittedly pretty good at. But as far as the actions your courier themselves performs, largely it's well just this. There's no visual feedback for what you're doing, and that's simply what we're going to be adding in today. I've tried to include nearly every mod that's currently out that would fall under the immersive animation category. Of course, there are kind of a lot of them, so some of them will only be giving brief rundowns on. Because if we covered them and everything else that could be considered immersive mods, this video would be way too long, and it's already taken me long enough to get this one done, but to be honest that's largely my own fault, but we'll get to that later. We should probably start with the most fundamental mod that's integral to this whole video. It adds in an animation for something that quite frankly is criminal it's not in the vanilla game. Animal Friend. Animated petting by Flip lets you pet some of the silly creatures out there in the wasteland, even inorganic ones. That's it, best mod and the only one you really need. Who needs anything else? The animations here are done by Hitman, which is a name we're gonna be saying a lot in this video. They're nice and the dogs even bark when you pet them, which is just amazing. As one user commented, we've officially entered the golden age of petting good boys in Fallout, and that's never been truer. If you've modded New Vegas in the past couple of years, I'm sure there's a series of mods that you'd expect to see here. And that's the B42 series by Xilandro. Most of you probably already have these mods downloaded, and if you don't, you really should. Because of this though, I'll save you some time and just give a brief rundown of the mods for those who might not know about them. B42 Inertia adds weapon inertia to the game, giving some subtle weapon sway when you look around, the strength of which can be configured in the mod's INI. I am currently using ETJ's preset for the video, which does exaggerate the effect. By default it looks like this though. B42 Inertia pairs really well with Locomotion mods that add in directional weapon bobble animations when you walk, crouch, jump or run, and these are honestly essential. They add some much needed weightiness to the movement animations in first person, with the majority of sets differentiating between power armor and normal animations, which sort of adds to the feeling that you're basically in a walking tank. There's a lot of Locomotion mods on the Nexus. It's best to check them out for yourselves and see which ones you want to use. Personally, I use Wombat's enhanced Locomotion, but you can go for any of the others on there. Both blended and frozen's ones are also good in my opinion, each providing something different that, depending on the vibe of your game or just personal preference, you might want to use instead. In vanilla New Vegas, picking up items in the world just causes them to awkwardly disappear from existence. While this was common at the time and still sort of is today, B42 Loot addresses this by implementing animations for looting objects in the world, adding in a transition so they don't just blip out of existence from the game world. It does however make them float towards the player's hand, but if you're not a fan of that you can just disable it in the mod's INI. This does work with things like just assorted mod's quick loot menu, so yeah. Fallout 4, although probably the weakest entry in the series, its animations are, well, they're not good, but they did add some in for healing both yourself and your companions. With two mods we can get both of these in the game. For healing yourself, B42 Inject does just that. By itself, the mod adds in a new animation for using a Stimpak. but it acts as a framework for a plethora of other mods. Hitman's done a B42 Inject series of animations which covers essentially every aid item in the game, from things like Sunset Sarsaparilla to Doctor's Bags, but also Stimpaks. The Stimpak mod comes with 4 new animations, so you'll have some increased variety when using the item that you probably use the most in game. For companions on the other hand, you'll want Stim Your Friends, another mod by Flip with animations done by Hitman, bringing Fallout 4 inspired animations for healing your companions. This includes healing them via the companion wheel or with Gyp's CC. So now you get to see your courier injecting some most likely 200-year-old syringe into whoever decided to follow you around. Or in Eddie's case, you tighten his bolts up a bit, which is some nice attention to detail, considering a Stimpak likely wouldn't do much for this silly floating ghoul. Similar to B42 Inject, B42 Interact does the same thing but for objects in the world. For example, you'll now have animations when interacting with doors, terminals, lockpicking, and even optional NPC ones. They're disabled by default, but these can be re-enabled by just changing a folder's name, so you can wave at Easy P. Believe it or not, but Hitman's also done an animation set for these, which is easily what I'd consider to be probably the most important thing you download that we've covered so far. Star Bottle Caps, Snow Globes, and the Platinum Chip have all been given unique animations for picking them up. It makes finding these items feel a lot more memorable as you get to see your courier interacting with the world that much more. It adds some characterization to a character that's by all intents and purposes a blank slate. Some of these are more comical than others, such as but they make the wasteland feel that much more alive, or well, as alive as static objects can be. I find that having animations for things like big quest items such as the Gek and Platinum Chip add to making these moments feel just as big as they should given their importance to the main quests. Just seeing them in a menu is underwhelming for devices that can both drastically change the outcome of the primary conflict in both of the games. There's another set that introduces skinning animations when looting hides or meats from wasteland wildlife, and another that adds in first time pickup animations to weapons akin to what Cyberpunk 2077 has. Finally, for the B42 series of mods, we have B42 Dynamic Pip-Boy, which does a miles better job at making the Pip-Boy feel less like a static menu than Fallout 4 ever did with that weird button you could hold down to look around at the Pip-Boy. Like, when, outside of the novelty of it, did anyone actually ever use this? I think this mod is better than that because it makes it so that the Pip-Boy, well, moves. There's subtle movement that mimics the courier breathing, and an added oomph to button clicks. It also slightly follows your mouse cursor too, which is a nice detail. This mod comes with several pre-configured files for Pip-Boy replacers, such as the Molten Cloud team's stunning recreation of the 76 Pip-Boy 2000, and their own take on the classic Fallout 2 one. But handheld replacers such as the Radius is also supported. It's difficult to describe the extent that something as small as the Pip-Boy reacting to movement genuinely impacts the feel of the game. It keeps you immersed in the world because it's not as if time just stops as soon as you hit tab. I mean, gameplay wise it still does, but it feels less invasive than it did in the vanilla game. Who knew that all the Pip-Boy needed to feel less like a menu was some jiggle physics. With that though, we're finally done talking about the B42 series of mods. Even with just those, your game will be more interactive and immersive than it ever was in vanilla. If the scope of this video was a bit bigger, I'd probably include things like B42 Recoil. As we're mainly focusing on animations here though, I won't cover it. Also, I've already done a video covering it, so you can go check that out if you want to find out more about that mod. Of course though, we can go further, moving on to some other mods that you might have missed when browsing the Nexus. Helmet Overlay Animation Addon was one such mod that I missed. Personally, helmet overlays are a genre of immersive mods that I've always seen as kind of unnecessary. Slapping a texture over the screen when equipping a helmet or mask just feels like too big of a detriment to gameplay for me. They feel kinda clunky, and whilst it does add a level of immersion to the game, I can't help but get the impression that they're just a gimmick. The animation add-on mod requires Slippy's helmet overlay mod, which out of all of the ones on Nexus is probably the least intrusive mod of its type. Adding in different overlays for different helmets provides some extra way to differentiate them in first person. The animation add-on though makes the overlay feel like less of a flat texture and more like an actual helmet. It'll bobble when you walk, bobble a bit more when you run, and even more so when you jump. The inertia is different depending on the type of headwear you're wearing as well, so things like helmets are going to act weightier than something like sunglasses. This mod single-handedly changed how I feel about overlay mods, and it just goes to show the difference that some animations can have on making something go from feeling like more of a gimmick into an actual immersive feature. Another mod that complements the overlay one rather well is Screenblood Enhanced. This overhauls the vanilla game's Screenblood effect and the conditions in which it appears. Basically though, your screen will be more red more often for longer. All of this can be configured in the mod's INI, allowing you to tweak the settings to your liking. That's not why it made it into this video though, because the mod also brings with it a Metro style wipe mechanic. This in tandem with the helmet overlay mod makes using headwear feel incredibly immersive. By default the hotkey for screen wiping is H, so if you're using just a sorted mod's wheel menu, you'll have to change one of the bindings. The blood splatters conditional changes though do also just sort of make sense. It wasn't really all that common in the base game. Like, yeah, if I decide to use my anti-material rifle at close range, my screen probably should get coated in red from the impact. But it doesn't just get coated in red with this mod. There are different colours of screen blood depending on the enemy, and wiping it provides a quick way to remove the screen blood effect, and it's much better than just waiting for it to slowly dissipate like it did in the vanilla game. The fact that the colour of the blood changes as well depending on what you're fighting is an appreciated level of detail that elevates this mod even more. Speaking of details, let's flesh out the Pip-Boy light. Not by making it better, it's still going to be the equivalent of cracking a glow stick, but by giving it an animation. The issue is, I don't really think Bethesda thought about the Pip-Boy light, like how you'd actually turn it on. It lacks any sort of light button or anything. So for the Pip-Boy 3000, the mod authors decided to make it activate on a long press of the data button. There are different animations here depending on when you activate the Pip-Boy light. This ranges from things such as having your weapon out to being in power armor. And in case you were wondering, there is a patch for the Pip-Boy 2000, which has you turn on the light by using the switches on the side. It's a small mod, but with the amount that you use the light in caves and darker areas in the game, it'll be an animation you'll see quite often. And it's a really nice one too. The clicky sounds of the light on the Pip-Boy 2000 one is really satisfying. Crafting. Mine crafting. Okay, let's talk about crafting and repair animations. Also by Flip and Hitman, it basically does what the title suggests it would. That's it. So yeah, it's a nice mod, and if you're already downloading the others, you should get these too. It's more immersive than instantly repairing or magically making some items in the menu, so yeah. That mod was Explosion Reactions. Similar to Screenblood Enhanced, this is a mod that is equally as configurable. Out of the box though, without any edits, it's still a really nice mod. It sort of makes sense that something like this should be in the game. Your courier just standing there being able to tank the boomer's barrage without any sort of reaction at all is not very immersive. A big worry I did have downloading this mod though was that what if I came up against an enemy with a grenade machine gun? Thankfully that's really rare, but even if you do, the animation is on a cooldown, so you don't just get locked into it and doomed to a timely demise. It's a really nice mod, and considering the game already sort of does have an explosion reactions with the screen shake and blur, adding an animation to it just sort of makes sense. But anyways, that's all the immersive animation mods that have come out so far this year that I think you should download. We've added in some new ones that make the general game world feel a lot more interactive with things like the B42 series, and others which make combat feel a lot more visceral and intense with Screenblood Enhanced. Overall, you should really download these mods. Most of them are frameworks allowing for mod authors to create their own animations for them, so over time, hopefully we'll see even more. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, maybe consider liking or subscribing. I'm sorry this video took so long to come out. I've got a kitten recently and she's been taking up quite a lot of my time at the moment. Oh, and also working on my own mods is also pretty time consuming, so yeah. But I hope to see you all next time for the other video that's gonna be coming out in about another 10 to 90 business days. But yeah, see ya.